What's up, guys? Welcome to the rendition of the Amanda and Rich Show. And today we're going to be having an overview of how to get into medical school. So in this video, we're not going to get into really specific details about what exactly you should be doing, but we're going to give you a basic overview of the things to consider doing while in your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year.
So to begin off, in freshman year, I think this is the most important year to really focus on classes and getting good grades and really absorbing your material. So what's the typical classes that I guess most people take freshman year?
So for just pre-med class-wise, biology and chemistry. So Bio 1, Bio 2, Chemistry 1 and 2. So I think those are basically the most common classes you take as a freshman. And that's kind of like your introduction to the sciences as well.
Right, and that includes labs as well. Each one of those classes, I think a lab is required for that.
It's usually coupled, yep.
Yeah, so I think just definitely focus on doing well, just getting used to college level courses, because it's really going to help you on the MCAT if you have a good foundation in those classes. Activity-wise, what would you suggest?
So for the first or second week of classes, I would definitely say try to go to as many clubs as you can to see which clubs you really connect with. Maybe you might like a club, but maybe you don't like the people within it, so maybe that's not something you would look forward to going to. So see which club you connect with, and maybe that's the one you want to proceed with.
Right, so focus on your grades, see if you can get involved with anything on campus, start seeing what you enjoy, and then I think you could also start maybe in the winter freshman year, start looking into anything you're going to do over the summer, start making summer plans, maybe gain clinical experience, some sort of volunteering activity, community outreach, all of that, and maybe even get involved in research if that's something you're looking into.
Yeah, but don't fret too much, if you can't get into research freshman year. Sophomore year is also a great opportunity to do so as well. But I'd definitely say, I would definitely recommend in freshman year you get involved with some type of clinical experience like Amanda was talking about, whether that's shadowing a local physician or volunteering at a local hospital.
So for sophomore year, I think, again, you want to focus on your classes, and I think you actually want to make sure you're getting in all of your pre-med requirements. I would kind of look at what you have left and try to make sure you're getting those done. And I wouldn't be too afraid to take a winter class, if you need to get a requirement done. I wouldn't be afraid to take it over the summer or in the winter, just because I remember wanting to do that, but I don't remember who told us this, but at our school it was this thing oh, don't take your pre-med classes in the summer because what did they say? It's not as competitive or something?
Well, you don't want to take, all your pre-med classes in the summer. You'd want to maybe take one or two during the summer. I think taking biochemistry during the summer is fine, or finishing up maybe physics
or a lab or something.
Yeah.
But so my point is, maybe I just listened in extremes or something, but whatever I heard was that it's bad to take those classes in the summer. But I think it's actually good if you can get them done early, because then you have them all done for the MCAT, and I think that would actually help you score better on the MCAT. So I feel better MCAT score and taking a few classes in the summer, winter, that's important in my opinion.
So in terms of pre-med classes you want to take in the during your sophomore year, I would say organic chemistry and physics are probably the most commonly taken in that year, along with their also labs like you said before. Other than that, I would recommend trying to again, take winter and summer classes. It doesn't have to be pre-med classes necessarily, but it can be, maybe other requirements you have to get out of the way to finish your degree. But taking those classes will allow you to have more time during your junior year, during the spring, if you plan on taking the MCAT then, so that you don't have a very high payload, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Payload.
I'm thinking Overwatch too much. You don't have a lot of
course load.
Course load. There you go. Payload. So try to allow a very low course load for that junior spring semester, because that's going to be probably your most important semester for your college career, if again you plan on taking the MCAT during that semester.
So again, if you haven't really gotten involved in any sort of clinical experience or research that you're really interested in, if you haven't found something that you're passionate about, sophomore year is kind of a really important time to start figuring that out, because I think long-term activities are really important for med school. So I feel you want to find clinical experience, find research experience, and start figuring out what you enjoy so that you can build relationships, you can get good letters of recommendation later from that, and you'll also have more meaningful experiences to write about when you file your application. So I feel kind of get it started at least at the beginning of sophomore year, and then continue it through the summer, through junior year, and even start taking on leadership roles if you can.
So hopefully those clubs you joined during your freshman year, now some leadership roles have opened up during that sophomore year.
Yeah, definitely. So junior year is, again, a continuation of any sort of activities you've done, but also you want to start figuring out if there's any gaps that you created in your application. This is a good time to kind of address those. So if you did like a lot of research, try to get more clinical experience, try to volunteer more, something like that. And also you want to start I guess getting your ducks in a row is the best way to say it, but that at the end of junior year, that spring and summer is when you start your application if you want to go directly into medical school. So that's when you want to start thinking of people for letters of recommendation. You want to start coming up with personal statement ideas at least. That year is kind of all about that.
So this year is also super important because this is the year you're taking your MCAT, and that plays a huge role in your application. So I would recommend at least start thinking about studying during your winter break for your junior year. You don't have to start studying necessarily super hard, but I would allow, at least for me, 4 to 5 months, depending on, your strengths for the MCAT. Start figuring out, how did you do during your pre-med classes for biochemistry, physics, organic chemistry, and see, do you think that you have major holes in your knowledge in those areas? And if you do, therefore you need more time to study for it. So give yourself more time. If you don't, obviously you can, lucky for you, you don't have to spend as much time studying, but hopefully you still study a lot. And you can, minimize that time for studying. But I would say typically, most people use at least 3 months. For me, I needed 5 months to study for it.
Well, yeah, and it also depends how much time you can dedicate solely to studying. So for me, I didn't really have a chunk of time where all I did was study, which I do recommend having that if you can. But let's say you have a job that you're not really going to be able to stop, or there's an experience that you want to keep going with, or you're studying during school. If you're always going to have something and there's not one portion where it's just MCAT studying, then I think you need to increase the length of time.
So remember when you took all those winter and summer classes, this is where it plays a big role, because this should be the semester you minimize your course load to its basically minimum. You want to take, I think usually at schools it's 12 credits is the minimum. So try and fill those 12 credits with kind of easy classes, because you should be having your main class, even though you're not getting any credit for it, be that MCAT class, and even you might want to consider taking a course for the MCAT as well. So that would require also a high amount of time to dedicate towards as well.
Yeah, and I mean because it's not just your MCAT, again, like I said, you're applying, you're doing all the application stuff, so you're adding on 2 major things on top of school, plus you're expected to keep with your activities, and you're actually supposed to be taking on greater roles in those activities, so it's a lot more. So that's kind of why I think you should keep your course load. I'll get all your courses in early on if you can.
So hopefully now that you've taken the MCAT, this is your junior summer year. This is the time where you're going to be applying to medical school, and you're going to be filling out a whole bunch of secondary essays. You're going to be filling out your primary application, and you are going to spend a lot of time doing these essays, because usually each school you apply to sends their own secondary essay to you, which is different from all the other schools. So you write your personal statement and a whole bunch of other activities in your primary application, and then you send it out, and then they send you another application called a secondary, and again they require you to write another essay. So also, just so you know, when you submit your primary application, unless it's very, very early, like June 1st, it usually takes about a month to process. So mine processed in about 3 weeks. I think yours was about the same time.
Yeah.
3 weeks, but I've heard people have it be 4 weeks to process.
Yeah, it depends when you file it, but sometimes it's even longer than 4 weeks actually. So you do want to take that into consideration. Just because you file your application at a certain date doesn't mean it's being viewed by medical school. So that's why a lot of people say to apply early. That's why you really just want to have a good schedule to follow.
Yeah. And you can't get any secondary essays until your primary application is complete. So until it's verified. But it's not all bad. Here's an actual pro tip that you can use. So if you find yourself waiting about a month, you can actually start writing the secondary essays during that time, and you can find the prompts usually online. Usually it's on SDN. So you can find the prompts and you can pre-write your essays, so that when you finally get verified and get completed with your primary application, you can just send out the secondary right away.
And then also just one last thing for that summer. I mean, you're going to be very busy applying and doing all that, but this is kind of, I guess, summer into fall. And just senior year in general, you don't want to be like, my application's in, I'm good. Like, this is when I have fun. Like, I mean, I guess you can lighten up a little bit, but at the same time, I think you really need to keep doing things and keep doing the activities you were doing, because if you ever want to write an update letter senior year, like let's say you haven't heard back yet, it'll really come in handy. It's really tempting to just be like, my application's in, there's nothing I can do
I'm
anymore.
Done.
Yeah.
I'm done, don't touch it,
It's
I'm
exhausting,
done.
so like it's so tempting to do that, but I think you'll be very like thankful to yourself later if you don't do that.
Absolutely.
Because also even in your interviews, it gives you new things to talk about, and it shows them that like you're not just doing it to get into med school, you're doing it because you care about it, and you want to do it. So a few more things for senior year. I mean, aside from just, filling in any gaps that you have in your application, continuing activities, you're going to be interviewing in the fall or even into the winter and spring. So you kind of have to leave time for that, but it's really just like senior years should be the easiest year just because everything should be done. Most of your requirements should be done before you apply, so it's going to be like easier classes, just stuff you need to graduate. Any other classes maybe that you think might help you with med school if you have time for that, like anatomy or genetics or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind. And then
even some schools require genetics for admission.
Yeah, actually they do.
Also,
so that's good.
For the schools you apply to, make sure you check what classes they recommend, because not all the schools require the same classes. So some schools require genetics, some don't.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because the senior year would actually be a good time to get those in if there's like a class that was like random in your brain or something that you didn't think you needed. That senior year is really a good time to do that. So just also like an overall tip for the process in general. I think that like throughout the process, it's very good to seek out advice. It's very good to ask the opinions of those who have gone through it. But at the same time, I feel like you have to also know yourself, and you have to be careful. Like, I think one of my biggest mistakes was I listened too much to what I thought I was supposed to do, as opposed to what I would have like been interested in more. So like maybe I thought, well, this activity is cooler than what I'm interested in, so I should do that because med schools will think it's cooler. But I think if I could go back, I would change that and really like follow what interests me the most. I think it would be so much easier to like piece together a story. It would have been easier to take on leadership roles. It would have been easier to just juggle everything because you actually want to do it, and your activities become like a break from studying.
And so my final piece of advice would be careful what who you listen to in terms of for advice.
What? Yeah, like don't listen to us. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, like.
No, like you're gonna hear a lot of people tell you like a lot of different things. You're gonna read a lot of different comments. You're gonna have pieces of advice that conflict, so you may not know where to go. My advice would be just to listen to everything and be your own interpreter. Decide for yourself, what you think is best for you, because in the end, it's your life and your career.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, because I feel like, everyone's different, and even things we're saying might not work for everyone, so it's up to you to know, or even maybe just try it out and then realize it's not working and do something else, and maybe someone else's advice would work for you. But I think some people would say oh, you're studying too much, like you need to focus on this, and I actually heard that a lot, and it's really easy to listen to that piece of advice because you're like, oh yeah, I'm studying too much, like I need to relax, like that sounds great, like let me do that. And while I think that's important, for me, I actually need to study a lot, and I don't mind it. Like, I like school. I can focus for pretty long periods of time, and while I need breaks, I need to study a lot in order to do well. So I found, if I it was almost like peer pressure into studying less, and I actually did worse in those semesters, or I just...
Makes sense.
I mean, it's true, it does make sense, but I just mean something as simple as that, people telling you study too much or something. If you know yourself and that's how you do well, don't be afraid to keep doing what works for you.
Yeah, or they might say, oh, become a medical scribe, it looks so good. It may look really good on your application, but maybe it's just not for you. And you might be miserable in it, and it might be a waste of time because maybe you quit after the first day.
Right.
So that's kind of extreme example of, you know, that kind of case where listening to somebody might be detrimental to you.
Well, yeah, and like even that, it's, maybe you would like it, but what if it's like random to your entire application? Like maybe there's something that you're more passionate about that's also medically related, and then you just like, you can't fit in why you decided to be a scribe, you know, like, and then it's like hard to explain why you randomly chose that. Like, it's just, that's why you gotta do what works for you.
Yeah. So know your goal, plan out how you're gonna get there, and achieve it.
Yeah, simple as that.
Simple as that. So hopefully you learned something in this video about maybe the overview of the process of kind of like how the outlay of the classes works. So if you like our videos and want to see more of them, hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you later.